Welcome to the Library of Humanity. Today I'm going to make a connection between climate change and spiral dynamics. So if you don't know what spiral dynamics is, I have some videos on my channel. You want to look for spiral dynamics or stage yellow or stage turquoise. Those will get you introduced to that topic. So this will be more of an in-depth look from the perspective of spiral dynamics, but we're going to connect it with the video I made about the Guy McPherson article and climate change, because some levels in spiral dynamics just don't care at all about the earth. They don't care at all about the environment. They care about their immediate environment, like their job, their family, and I don't blame them because they're at their specific spiral dynamic stage. Okay, so for example, let's start with stage red. So the essence of stage red is basically people who are very, very egocentric. So stage red is an egocentric stage where human beings are just in their environment and they're looking just to survive, not at like beige, but they're looking for like maybe it's the inner city gangster, or it's maybe like the dictator of a very, I would say, medieval type culture, such as Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan was very stage red, where you're just trying to perpetuate your ego and your agenda in a very warrior-like spirit. So stage red is a very warrior. It's very masculine. It's very fight to the death. It's very, very temperamental in the sense that you just behave to stimuli in your environment very quickly without deliberation from your mind. You don't think logically, you just react, right? So there's actually some people in America that are still a majority in stage red, but those people are very, very disadvantaged. They might be living in the inner city or way out in the boondocks and needing to hunt for their food. This is very, very stage red. If you watch, I think, Life Below Zero, that show, that's very, very stage red in the sense that you're just trying to kind of survive in your environment as a human being. Although it's a little bit more cultured than stage beige. Stage beige is like Homo erectus, when human beings were just trying to survive, and they were kind of proto-humans and didn't have the full capacities that we as Homo sapiens have in our brains. So stage red is a very interesting stage because you're just not interested in environmentalism at all. And then the next stage, you go stage blue. Now, before I mention stage blue, though, it's very interesting is the stage below stage red is stage purple. Now, stage purple is the magic, the mystical, and the shamanistic stage, where you have Native Americans, but specifically in very, very traditional Native American societies, where they still practice shamanism, alternative medicine. Maybe they go on peyote retreats. Maybe the tribes in the Amazon who live just with themselves. They don't have contact with the developed world yet. They just maybe live in bands of 150 people, and they just speak their language. These are stage purple. Now, stage purple is very, very intriguing. It's actually maybe one of the more interesting stages in how stage purple relates to the environment, because they're incredibly in tune with their environment. Now, they have so much knowledge of plants. Specifically, if you live in the Amazon or if you live in sub-Saharan Africa, such as the San people who live in the Kalahari Desert. Now, these people are very in tune and in touch with their environment. They know more about plants and fungi and animals than probably any other stage, maybe besides stage beige. But these people know the interaction and the interconnectivity between animals, plants, soil, humans, and even spirit. Stage purple sees all of this as connected. So it's mind, body, spirit from the human perspective, and then also the environment, so animals and plants. It's all interconnected. Now, what's interesting though is that sounds a lot like kind of like stage green or stage turquoise, which I haven't gotten to yet. But stage purple is really only interested in how the human interacts with its immediate environment. Because these tend to be hunter-gatherer societies, right? They might be hunting for their food rather than buying it from a grocery store, like almost any other stage does, higher than stage purple. So that would be stage red and above. They tend to live in civilization, where they could maybe go to a grocery store, or they have food provided to them by their government, such as in Cuba. So I think stage purple is incredibly interesting because they have so much knowledge of the environment and how it works, yet they don't know the perspective, like the Gaia perspective. They don't know the science. Where you get at stage orange, you start learning so much about science that you see how the Earth is very systems based. It's a systemic, specifically at stage yellow, way up in tier 2. You start seeing that everything is connected from like a scientific perspective. But then at stage purple, way below, stage purple is really into shamanism. So maybe you take mushrooms, psilocybin mushrooms, or you take ayahuasca, and then puts you in a psychedelic state in which you can see the interconnectivity and the spirituality of the earth. But of course, they know nothing about Asia. They know nothing about Africa. They only know, again, their tribe. So you don't really get the complete Gaia theory, or I don't know if it's a theory. If you do know, please comment below. But how you see Earth as a living spirit. So yes, stage purple does, yet it does not see the scientific immensity and the grandiose size that Earth is, right? Like Native Americans might not even know in a traditional society that the Earth is round, right? So they still might think that the Earth is flat, yet they still have all of this knowledge of plants. Okay, so that's why I think stage purple is so interesting. If you have more questions, please comment below. So we hit stage purple, and we hit stage red first. Now let's move into stage blue, where you have the Catholic Church, you have Islam, you have Hinduism, and Buddhism, and Japanese culture. It's very, very traditional. It's very masculine, patriarchal specifically. And these people do not care about climate change. These people do not care about how they interact and maybe how their actions of overconsumption would negatively impact people in other countries, right? Because stage blue is very ethnocentric. Rather than egocentric, it's ethnocentric, kind of like a lot of people who support Donald Trump, or people who support Nicolas Maduro, might be stage blue because they care only about their nation, right? It's nation first, America first, as Donald Trump says. However, Donald Trump himself is in between red-blue. However, those who support him are almost exclusively blue-orange, because there's really not that much stage red in America anymore. So stage blue really doesn't interest me because it's people who are really, really focused on their church, and they just believe what their pastor or their imam is telling them. They don't really think for themselves. They might be very well educated in the sense they might know a lot of facts. However, they don't see the connection between like philosophy and skepticism that you start getting at like orange, green, and yellow. They don't even think about that kind of stuff. They might just memorize for their history test and get 100% by just memorizing the facts. You see as stage blue, you see a lot of life in numbers, quantifying. These people believe a lot in like private school, where you want to get educated by the church rather than the secular government. They don't believe in secularism, because secularism means it's actually an endangerment to their religion. So that's when you start getting secularism at the next stage, stage orange. Stage orange, though, where you have secularism, capitalism, and modern science, such as medicine. Now, people who are really into stage orange, like in atheism or in globalization in general, people aren't that concerned about the environment still at stage orange. Stage orange is still I still would consider it a very masculine stage, but it's going back to almost egocentrism. So it's actually So at stage blue below, you're at ethnocentrism, but now at stage orange, you're at egocentrism again. Okay, but this, albeit this egocentrism is very like deep and complex. However, it's based on capitalism. It's still based on me first, me and my family, me and my country. Yeah, I might support the military. I might travel, but the reason why I travel is to get a lot of countries on my passport, show photos on Instagram. If you think about stage orange, I think a lot about Instagram and getting a lot of likes. Even on YouTube, for example, a little bit of my stage orangeness shows up in me when I want to get a lot of likes and comments and views on my YouTube channel. However, I'm also have self-developed quite a bit beyond stage orange into green, yellow, and even turquoise. So I don't really focus too much on the quantifying. I go for the quality. Okay, so stage orange is still kind of like really big into quantity in life, like the more the better. But it's starting to get into quality. However, if you think about like fashion in Italy, or if you think about Broadway in New York City, this is, or the Olympics even, or the World Cup. So this is like human performance, right? So human performance is a really, really big value in stage orange. And it's kind of like greatness, right? Greatness, achievement, do, that's stage orange. And if that's the case, you don't really have enough time. All of your resources are going into developing the human. It's humanism, developing the human, right? So this stage orange started with capitalism and the creation of science in Europe during the 1700s. Kind of started with Descartes. Descartes really pushed stage orangeness away from stage blue. And it was really focused on the human, right? You started seeing that in the Renaissance, where you're creating humanism rather than a God-centered society. The God-centered society would be like stage purple, specifically stage blue, where God is the patriarch at the top of the hierarchy, and it's a very masculine figure. God the Father in Christianity, or Allah in Islam, where it's kind of a masculine figure that rules over all of the earth. And you see that there's actually a separation between the earth, humans, and God. There's a complete separation. And you still see that a lot in Christianity around the world. So with stage orange, to go beyond stage orange, because stage orange is putting all of its resources into developing human greatness and achievement, and like you're drinking coffee all day, you're just trying to do your best, you're trying to make a lot of money, you're trying to dress nice, you might wear an Italian suit. Now, you still don't have enough time to think about the environment that much. Okay, you might believe in human rights. At stage orange, you start believing in human rights rather than exclusively what the Bible or the Quran said. However, stage orange, you're so worried about capitalism and doing well for yourself materially that you don't really consider, how is my consumption influencing the family down the river, right? Maybe you're literally dumping crap down the river, and the town 10 miles down the river is drinking what you're shitting in, right? Literally and figuratively, because you're literally shitting on the environment at stage orange, and you're building up nuclear weapons because you're so into your country, you're so into being macho at stage orange, that you want to win. It's all about win at stage orange, that you're not considerate of maybe my actions influence negatively the countries in the third world, developing countries, or even in America, like considering how are my actions influencing the forests in Canada, or how are my actions influencing the amount of plastic in the ocean, right? I just read an article today where near the Philippines, now the Philippines is a very stage blue, stage orange society, that the Philippines, because it's developing, I'm not saying that's bad, I'm just saying that's a sign of development, of developing. So I found there was a whale that had 88 pounds of plastics in in it, so in its belly, right? So it had eaten like over 1,000 plastic bags. Now, that, of course, that's horrible for its body, right? You can neither digest it nor poop it out. So it's just sitting there, and eventually it gets so weak because it's not consuming nutrients that it just dies, and it showed up on shore in the Philippines. Now, of course, the Philippines isn't developed enough, or even it's not at stage green, where it's gonna, like, the Philippines are gonna get mad and say, oh, we're gonna ban plastic bags, or we're gonna create a nonprofit organization in which we're gonna save the whales, right? You might hear that in like Scandinavia, like Norway, Sweden, or Denmark, or Canada, Australia, New Zealand. You might hear about save the whales there. Maybe California, right? California. This is when you start getting stage green. Now, stage green went from modernism to postmodernism. So stage orange was modernism, within the belief of capitalism and modern science. Now, stage green in postmodernism, yes, you still believe in science, but you're actually looking at life and truth holistically, where you're seeing that you're using science in order to improve the environment for all humans, for men, women, people of color. So that's stage green postmodernism. And you see that since all people are inherently of equal value because they are human, that you want to have enough resources for those humans. It's really hard to see at stage green a child in Ethiopia or Somalia dying of starvation due to drought in Ethiopia and Somalia, and that drought is directly correlated to the increase in temperature around the earth. All right, so at stage green, you're very, very worried or cognizant of the climate science. Maybe you're not too worried about like modern medicine. You're probably interested in public health, because in public health, that's not really a big issue in stage orange yet, because that's too systemic. At stage orange, you're really looking at how can my family use modern medicine to improve themselves. Whereas stage green, you're starting to look at like things like public health. You see that public health influences people of color, women, and people who are being affected by civil war in Africa, or the fertility rate in Central Asia, like in Pakistan, for example, because women in Pakistan aren't as well educated due to the high level of Islamism. I don't know the right word. I guess conservative Islam, where they don't want girls to be too educated. So since girls aren't that well educated, they get pregnant very early in their teenage years and get married. So there's a direct correlation between more education and fewer babies. So I'm actually a geography teacher, so this is why I know that basic geographical demographical information. So basically, stage green is the beginning of systems thinking. However, it's more thinking with your heart before thinking with your mind. So stage orange was very heady and focused on like statistics and data and like medicine and quantifying everything. But stage orange is when you become a little bit more hippie, and you say things like save the oceans, save the whales, save the gorillas in Africa. You're very interested in saving species around the world because of loss of habitat directly correlated with climate change. You want to save the polar bears. You want to save the bees. Actually, the bees are very, very important for the environment in general. And that's actually maybe what we should focus on most at stage green is how can we save the bees. Without the bees, our grocery stores would be like half full than they are right now. Because with our food, 80% of the pollination comes from wild bees. So even if you're domesticating bees, you're losing 20% of the pollination. So I don't know if that's the right word actually. Pollinators, because bees are pollinators. But anyways, I'm not a climate scientist by any means. I'm just a human geographer and a philosopher and meditator. But I'm trying to connect all of these ideas into self-development, but specifically human development, specifically Earth development, right? So now I'm starting to talk about stage yellow. Stage yellow is the interconnectivity of everything, where you're seeing how data and science connects with the human heart. So you love everything, but then you connect it with science and economics, politics, and you see that everything that you hear on the news and the world news is connected with the next thing. So you see that a lot of the sad stories in world news on New York Times that I read is directly correlated with climate change. It's directly correlated with racism, because you see everything as a system. Climate change is a system. Racism is a system, not created by any particular one person, right? Climate change, you can't blame one person for climate change. You can't blame one person for racism. You can't blame, what's another basic thing, is having too much ego. I think that's a huge root of a lot of quote unquote evil or negativity around the world, is too much ego. However, you can't blame one ego for the problem of egotism, right? Egoism. So I don't, at stage yellow, you don't blame any one particular person, okay? At stage green, one below, you actually blame people at stage orange and stage blue for all of your problems. You blame Donald Trump for all of your problems. You blame the Republicans for all of your problems. You blame people who consume too much. That's who you blame. You blame the rich, right? At stage yellow, you don't blame the rich. You blame the system that created the rich. You don't blame the poor people for not being educated. You blame the system that created poor people not to be educated. You don't blame public schools. You blame the system that makes public schools poor and not functional in a lot of public schools. Not all public schools, obviously. I'm a big believer in public schools. We just need to pour more money into public schools and make it more efficient and have better teachers. And how you have better teachers is by giving them a lot of even more respect and more prestige in society, where you have doctors, lawyers, and teachers being the most important occupations in your society, right? If you look at Finland, now Finland is very, very stage green, but even if Finland was stage yellow more, you see that being a teacher is the most prestigious occupation in the entire country, maybe besides a doctor. However, in the United States, we're very stage orange, where we have a lot of eggs in our basket towards being a doctor, right? Because doctors can help me stay alive, right? That's more important than like going to school from our perspective. And that's not what people say. It's more like what they believe via their actions, right? Their actions speak louder than their words, because we say that we respect teachers, yet we pay them shit, right? In Finland, teachers get paid almost as much as doctors do. Actually, maybe even more. Because here in the United States, we overpay doctors, because we pay doctors due to, not due to outcomes, but due to how many patients show up. How many prescriptions did they write, right? It's not based on, did those people get better? No, it's based on how many prescriptions did you write for your patients, right? That's sorry, excuse my language, that's fucked up. Because that incentivizes doctors to write these prescriptions, and it supports the pharmaceutical companies, because the entire healthcare industry is based on pharmaceutical companies making a shit ton of money. Now, if we had a more egalitarian system in which we actually cared about people's health, we would be pouring money into preventative measures. We would be pouring money into psilocybin mushrooms, pouring money into exercise, pouring money into the education system, pouring money into equalizing opportunities and decrease the achievement gap in schools, and we have a more healthy, happy society, maybe more like in Finland or Costa Rica. I mean, even Costa Rica, which could be considered a developing country, I would argue that it's not. I would actually argue that Costa Rica in a lot of ways is more developed than the United States. They're not as rich, right? Because if you look at like the HDI, the Human Development Index, it's so focused on economics rather than things like human rights and environmentalism, because the HDI coming from the UN is still a very stage orange type of entity, or group and entity. So they look at development from a stage orange perspective. So your perspective is literally like a lens. It's your orange tinted sunglasses. That's what stage orange is. When you're wearing orange tinted sunglasses, that's all you see is orange, right? Now you put on your stage green tinted sunglasses. Now everything is stage green, and it's impossible for you to look at life through a stage orange or a stage yellow perspective, right? So I'm trying to get you all to that next stage. What pair of sunglasses are you wearing right now? What tint are they? Are they green, orange, yellow? I want you after this video, this month to go up a half a step. If you're at the unhealthy stage of green, I want you to be a healthy stage green next month. If you're like me, where you're kind of in the yellow, you're wearing yellow tinted sunglasses, I want you to start getting into stage turquoise. Now, stage turquoise is when you meditate, you go on solo retreats, you do nothing for an entire weekend. And I mean do nothing. I have a video below called Do Nothing and Self-Actualize. You dedicate an entire summer to self-actualization. You meditate a lot, and then you meditate on psilocybin or LSD, and then you go really, really deep into seeing what consciousness is. Now, turquoise is the consciousness stage, where you see the universe equals consciousness. Consciousness equals the universe. Human beings equal consciousness. So human beings equal the universe. Earth, Gaia, equals the universe. We don't just mean the earth. When we're talking about earth, we're talking about the universe. When we're talking about anything, we're talking about the universe in total. Okay, so that's when you start seeing stage turquoise. I'm kind of like, so no human is entirely in one stage. It's like an onion where you have these layers, and at the core, you might have mostly one stage. But for example, for me, I'm a lot in different stages, right? I'm a lot in stage green, quite a bit in stage yellow, a little bit in turquoise, a little bit in orange, but I still have blue, red, purple, and beige, more from when I was a child. So that might be coming from like your childhood trauma, for example. That might be your stage purple, stage red, stage beige aspect of you. That might be in your Jungian archetypal subconsciousness. That might be if you take ayahuasca, you might know kind of what I'm talking about, where I actually haven't taken ayahuasca myself, but ayahuasca will bring out what's kind of in your barnacles per se. It's like your trauma from your childhood, and also kind of your fears. Your fears are a big one. So your fears tend to be at stage kind of red, purple, blue, beige kind of stages, and you still haven't worked them out. That's why you're still fearful of them. For example, I watched Batman Begins, and he has this illogical fear of bats. Now that's kind of childish. I don't know exactly what kind of stage in spiral dynamics that would be, but it's still very interesting how he has this fear of bats. However, now at the end of the movie, he trains himself, he self-actualizes himself in a very stage orange kind of and stage red kind of warrior-like mentality. And then when he goes back to Gotham City, now he wants Batman wants to save the city. That's a lot more in like stage green or even stage yellow. Batman's not stage yellow. The League of Shadows is much more stage yellow, stage turquoise, where they're always looking for the balance of the earth, balance of the universe. So like if Rome gets too strong, the League of Shadows would get rid of Rome because they want this balance in the earth. Now that's probably very stage yellow and stage turquoise kind of tier 2 thinking, where you want an actual balance between all things, right? And you might have hated that part of the movie of the League of Shadows trying to have this balance of the universe, because maybe you're more stage orange, stage green, where you want Gotham to survive, right? You don't want, you want Gotham to continue as a city, even though there might be so much corruption and civil war, for example. You want Gotham to continue to surviving. But what if Gotham was obsolete, and that actually the citizens of Gotham would be better off creating a new city, creating a new country, or being split up between themselves into smaller cities, right? That's when you start thinking stage yellow, where it's more systems thinking, and you see that human beings, human nature naturally, the politics of human beings are constantly changing. So you might be open to forming new countries, forming new cities, new alliances, changing the constitution, right? So so obviously with climate change, stage yellow takes climate change very seriously. Stage turquoise takes it very seriously. Actually, stage turquoise sees that everything is climate, or climate equals the universe. So that's just how everything is interconnected. Same with stage yellow. It's completely interconnected. Stage green might be the most ardent because they're they're the ones going out and protesting climate change, saying that we need to change the system. We need the Green New Deal, right? From Ocasio-Cortez. She's very, very stage green in the sense that she wants to see change through policy, and create this Green New Deal, which of course the Green New Deal is not enough, not even close, because climate change is extremely dangerous. For the next 8 years of your life, the next 11 years of your life, climate change is gonna completely change your life that you have right now. Like all of this stuff that we have, right? We're not gonna be able to produce more because we're having this fossil fuel fiesta, right? Fossil fuels are done, and renewable energy is not gonna support our lifestyle. Specifically 9 billion people, 8 billion people, it's not going to support it. Climate change, when the Arctic melts, it's going to completely wipe out crops that we are growing and cultivating right now in specific areas. Crops are not going to be able to bounce back or to renew themselves in a different ecosystem that's going to be completely different when the average temperature of the earth is going to go up 10 degrees Celsius, right? So that gets into more about my video for my Guy McPherson article. So I'm going to end the video there. If you have more questions about spiral dynamics and how it connects to environmentalism, you can comment below. And I hope you guys have a good rest of your day. You can click the like button if you thought this was interesting. Stay tuned for more material specifically on how all of these scientific or self-actualizing topics connect with what makes you happy. That's what it's all about, is how can we increase happiness. All right, peace.